Welcome to Tool Talk episode 15. This is the official podcast for Jonard Tools. Today we have myself, Ed Cerbona, Senior Director of Engineering, and Wayne Bunce, our National Sales Director for North America for Jonard Tools. Today our special guest is Jonard's own Ricky Español. Hey, Ricky.
Hey, guys.
All
Welcome
right.
to the podcast, Rick.
There you go. So let me give you a little bit of Ricky's bio here. Ricky is the Latin America Sales Operations Manager and has been with Jonard for almost 20 years. Ricky's background is in customer service and sales, and over the years, he has also worked on many operations projects for the company. Today, we're going to talk about the Latin American markets, trends, and what we see going on. So, why don't we talk about the Latin American markets? Ricky, why don't you just give us an overview, will you, of the Latin America markets as a whole, okay? And then we can go into a little bit more differences between North America, et cetera, and stuff like that. Just give us, if you will, a lay of the land.
Right. So Latin American market consists of, including Mexico, because it's Latin America, even though obviously Mexico is North America. But anything from Mexico all the way down to Brazil, and it includes some of the islands. Now, all the islands in the Caribbean are considered Latin because some of them speak either French or English. So obviously, not all that territory is covered, but yeah, Latin America is mostly all the Latin-speaking countries in the Americas. So in terms of the market in Latin America, it's still very, very cable TV centric. So a lot of coax is still out there. Latin America usually moves a little slower than other markets, like in the U.S. or in Europe, when it comes to deployment of new technologies. It has started to happen in the last few years. We're seeing, companies investing in infrastructure, predominantly fiber, though a lot of the coax, I think companies are still investing in DOCSIS 3.0, 3.1, because there's a lot of copper out there, and I don't think those companies want to really throw that money investment away. But yeah, the pandemic also had an effect on the region, and there was some investment in infrastructure, but compared to the U.S., I think in Europe, countries down there don't have that sort of backing of the governments. There's not a lot of funding coming from the governments. If there are some funding, it's not to the billion-dollar margins that we have in the U.S. and Europe. But yeah, it's moving. The market is moving into fiber. It's just a lot slower to adapt, and I think they might be a few years behind the U.S. and Europe. Though there's been fiber in the market. Obviously, fiber has been there as a backbone to the cable TV system. So HFC. So it's a hybrid system. So there is some fiber there on the outside plant, but now we're starting to see some countries invest in fiber to the home. So that market is definitely growing.
Okay. So one of the things I wanted to ask was in the U.S. here, we're seeing this tremendous growth, specifically in the fiber world, but that's to get communications out into the most rural of areas. So in the end, the end result is anybody anywhere has high speed broadband access. Are you seeing that kind of expansion? So you were just saying that yes, the market still with cable TV, and yes, there's some fiber being deployed, but are you seeing that done just solely in the more urban areas, or certainly I would suspect certainly in some country-specific areas, but do you see them trying to reach out to the more rural areas? In other words, is that broadband exposure growing?
Yes. I mean, obviously the urban areas, the bigger cities are always going to get the top priority from the bigger operators. But there is some, investment in the rural areas. A lot of the countries are opening up smaller ISPs. It's something that's been happening, like in Brazil and in Peru and Bolivia. You have in Colombia, you have companies out there, not the big operators, but smaller ISPs opening up shop, investing, putting down fiber and kind of investing in the market of the internet. So rural areas are getting some attention, and obviously it's going to take a long time because just geographically the whole America's region is they have mountains, they have rivers, they have jungles. It's going to be tough. It's not as easy. Well, just like in the U.S., it's not an easy task to do that. But I do see an interest in rural areas from smaller companies. People investing in their own communities, kind of like in the U.S., where you have local ISPs. What do you call that, Wayne? Those networks that are built by the communities. I forgot what the name of it is. I'm sorry.
Cooperatives.
Yeah,
cooperatives. Yes, the co-ops. Yes, cooperatives. Yeah, correct. So you're seeing also similar things like that in Latin America.
So I'm just curious, at a typical household, what kind of speed are they looking at on their internet down there?
It's pretty bad. You're looking at 30 down, 30 up, maybe less, maybe 30 down, 5 up. It's mostly, again, you're looking at 10 years ago in the U.S. when you had like maybe cable or DSL. Some places still are using DSL.
Yeah.
So it's behind. But obviously the COVID and the pandemic kind of opened up their eyes too, where they're aware that they do need a better infrastructure. A lot of people really realized that they needed to be able to have access to their computers when they were working from home. And it just opens up the market. It just opens up other opportunities, other companies to invest in other type of businesses. It's just telecommunications is the backbone of all the commerce in the world. So there is an investment in that. I think it's just going to be slower than the U.S. and more fragmented. But yeah, the speeds over there are not the best. Like when I go to Colombia on my phone, there's no 5G, there's no 4G. I get H or 3G, and that's the infrastructure that also requires fiber backbone. So to be able to get to that 5G speeds in a country like Colombia, they're going to need to invest in fiber. This is going to have to happen.
So I'm also curious what their plant looks like, because here in the U.S., I think we're spoiled, especially in like new areas. You don't ever see telephone poles anymore. Everything's buried.
Yeah.
What's the plant like in different countries?
Everything is hanged for the most part. Some countries are better than others. Some cities are better than others. You can go to places like Brazil, where you'll see like spaghetti. It's all over the place. Someplace in Colombia, in Bogota, it's also like that's very disorganized. But you go to Medellin, which is in the same country, and for whatever reason, that city is very clean. The way they hang everything is very precise, very neat. Reminds me of the U.S. I've taken some pictures because it's unique
but still being hung. It's just done in an organized fashion.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. It's, I think particularly the operators in that city are more clean with their setup and who has access to what pole and all that stuff. But everything is hang. I know that there are companies out there trying to push, ducts and,
push on underground, you mean?
Underground stuff,
ducts, right.
Yeah, by duct. But it's just an investment that I don't think they're keen to spend money on. I don't think they see the value of it, since there's already so many poles everywhere and they can just use that infrastructure to hang cable again. I don't see that changing anytime soon. And in some places it's harder to dig. City like Medellin is probably harder to dig because it's all hills up and down. I honestly don't know how they would do it.
I'm one of those people. I go on vacation, I look at telephone poles.
Yeah, me too.
And I know when I was down the Bahamas, I just noticed different islands, everything was hung, and I have a thought. I just find that interesting because, like I said, it's. I don't think we're ever going to go away from aerial in the U.S., but I know that for fiber deployment, a lot of companies are pushing underground.
I also think it's all new infrastructure, so new developments, new communities. I think at that point, it's easier just to do it on the ground. It's future proof it, but it's going to be difficult to go back and redo all that wiring underground. It's not. I don't think it's safe.
Quite frankly, it's the expense of it.
The expense,
honestly, why do we talk about underground and stuff like that? It's making the system more robust by being less susceptible for weather occurrences and the like, anything that could knock it down. Human intervention, exactly, in nature. The problem with that is that it's already been realized that it's cheaper to let Mother Nature do what she's going to do and then go out and fix it than it is to Mother Nature proof the infrastructure. Now, why is a lot being buried here in the U.S.? Because it in new projects mostly it's being buried because they're taking advantage of the time of the construction at that time to put everything underground to make that area weatherproof, if you will. However, going out to existing infrastructure that's there, I don't see that change, because the reality is it's not just the communications world. At that point, you're dealing with communications world as well as electrification. So
it's true. I saw that. I saw pictures of in the Dominican Republic, they were doing a new road, and they took the time to put ducts in it. But that's new infrastructure, so they take the time. It's cheaper at that point to do it that way. Yeah, so it does make sense, and I think Latin America is following through. Any new development, any new community or that they want to build, they're probably going to do underground because it's just cheaper and it'll last for a longer time. And Latin America is susceptible to weather also. Costa Rica is a country that it rains so much. They get so much rain, and I've seen videos of mudslides taking poles away, and I guess it's good for business because they're going to need our tools and products, but it's just it is what it is.
Yeah.
So one of the things I find challenging about South America versus North America is the number of countries. I'm spoiled in North America because I have U.S. and Canada, and it's pretty simple across the. I have 5 or 6 major companies I deal with, but you have multiple. Yeah, explain the difference, because like I said, it's mind-boggling because I've been down there with you, and it's just crazy.
Yeah, so going back to the fragmentation of the market, every country has its currency, economy, geopolitical issues. Not so much different from the U.S. Like each state has its own thing, and it almost feels like each state is its own country. But I think what unifies the U.S. is that currency and that market that pretty much is across the borders of each state. Where in Latin America, it's a little different. Not to get into details, but something can cost a lot more in one country versus the other, and the buying power of one country is higher than the other. So it's very fragmented, and obviously operators also kind of work in that way. So each operator that's in Latin America, even if they have services in each country, they tend to be somewhat different in each country, and they address each country in their own needs and ways. So It's not across the board. So yes, so it's harder because you do have to go through and kind of work with customers on different levels in each country, and everybody has different needs. And there's also fragmentation in the systems. Not everybody uses the same, interface or network. So yeah, it's a challenge. It's a big challenge.
Listen, I like how laid back everyone is. Like for lunch, I think we had a few beers at lunch, and seems normal. And here, it's taboo to drink on sales calls during the day now. Like it's frowned upon, I should say. But down there, it's just like it's culture. It seems like.
Yeah. So in the business side of things, culture wise, you eat, drink, and then talk business. Where you can't, it's it's kind of like buy me dinner first before we get into it. So yeah, it's just very laid back, very let's become friends, and you got to court me a little bit, and it's a different culture. It is very laid back. They love their holidays. Particularly, we have a lot of holidays because a lot of the countries are Christian based, or Catholic based. So, Good Friday, it's coming up. That week after Good Friday, it's dead for the most part, I think. We call Semana Santa. So it's like, Holy Week. And people just take it off and they go on vacation. They go to the country and there's no interaction. So same thing with December and January. So mid-December to mid-January, most people are off, having vacation, going to visit family. It's kind of like in Europe, where they take a whole month off. That happens in Latin America, and it's across the board in all countries. It's hard to get people to talk to, but it's hard to transact, do any type of business during that period.
So, Ricky, that's interesting. Ever since Ed and I have been working together for the last almost 23 years, we've been trying to implement Festivus for the rest of us.
Festivus?
At Jonard, yeah.
That's the Seinfeld Festivus?
Yeah, no, it's been a topic of many times of ours. So we should take tomorrow for Festivus. So yeah, it's I agree. We need more time off, guys.
You know what? I agree with that. Need to regenerate. Periodically. But we're getting sidetracked. Let's pull back in.
Well, it's part. Talking about Latin America is part of the culture. You have to talk about certain cultural aspects because it's different from the U.S. It's very different. And business is conducted a lot slower. You have to have a lot of patience. Where I think
that was the question I was going to ask. How does that cultural difference play out in terms of doing business? That's one point right there. Things happen a lot slower. They also have, I know in the U.S. Operators have budgets. Latin America, they have budgets too, and sometimes those budgets are more ample in one year versus the other. So there are periods where investment goes down, and then there's periods that investments go up. So for us, it's a steady market, but it's not as predictable, I would say, as the U.S. It's definitely more complex, and a lot of things affect the economy. So, for example, in Peru right now, there's a situation where they impeached the president, and the farmers and the people in the rural areas that was their president, or they voted for him, and now they're causing issues. Like, I think last time I checked, 50 or 60 people died in Lima from the protest and the infight. That happens every few years. There's always something going on. So, It is. It's and it happens in every country, but stability in Latin America, it's not always stable. There's always issues, economical, civil wars, dictatorships.
you name it. In the last 20 years, I can name quite a few of those happening over there. So, but it's a rich market. I mean, there's so much opportunity there. Just you have to weave and kind of swim between the complexities of each country and market. So
Right. Right. Okay.
yeah, and for us as a brand, we've grown. We're very popular down there. People like us.
Yeah, that is really a good thing, and that is in part due to your works, and for that we certainly appreciate that. So,
Oh yeah, thank you.
so okay, question, Wayne, or
No, I was waiting for you to. Your turn to
okay.
talk. It's your turn.
Okay, my turn to talk then. At this point, why don't we consider wrapping this up? Okay. We hope this podcast has been informative. Again, we'd like to thank Ricky for joining us today. We really enjoyed our discussion. We really did. I thought that was really, really good. And I hope you guys can join us again in the future. Thanks.